And finally, we come to One More Thing, which, of course, is a segment we do only at the end of episodes, because it would be kind of weird to start with One More Thing.
What if we just did an episode that was nothing but one more things?
Well, then what you would do is we'd have one more thing, two more things, and three more things.
One thing, two thing.
Three thing, blue thing. Blue fish, red fish. Well, we need an episode that's just like red fish, white fish, blue fish. That'd be something. Me, myself, and I. That'd be fun. Okay, so this one I wanted to talk about is because of bleh. Oh, sorry. Head freeze. During that same time where we were playing with that Poppets game, the youngest of these children wanted to watch the Spider-Man movie.
Which the Spider-Man movie are we talking about?
There's where I want to talk about this. That's actually a really
We're talking
pertinent
about
question.
all of the Spider-Man movies?
No, but this is actually where the really important point is. You kind of made the question that makes this whole segment. I hope. Mom gets out the different Spider-Man movies that we have. And she and the little one goes, "No, that's not the real Spider-Man. No, that's not the real Spider-Man." And eventually Mom pulls out Into the Spider-Verse. And she goes, "That's the real Spider-Man." And so then we have to watch Into the Spider-Verse.
Okay, first of all,
yes.
Are you pulling out just like DVDs that you've got of all these different Spider-Man movies?
Pretty much.
What even?
Yeah, I know.
But secondly, I have not seen Into the Spider-Verse, but I heard by all accounts it was fantastic.
Oh, it's a terrific film. I'm not going to disparage Into the Spider-Verse at all, and that second one's looking pretty tight. Because they actually showed, oh god, I want to say, is it 2033? No, it's not 2033. But anyway, the future Spider-Man version they showed in the new one. But anywho, Into the Spider-Verse, the original one. So Peter Parker's involved in it, but it's mostly a Miles Morales story.
Yes.
Okay. But anyway, for her, that's like, this is the real Spider-Man. So from her perception, this is the one that she's used to. She wanted to watch it, and then she wanted to tell me everything that happens in it before it happens. Because of course. But it got me to thinking about actually that story and that character and what it means for, like, parties when you're in a tabletop game. Let me explain that a little bit better.
Yes, please.
Okay. So, usually when people think about Spider-Man, chances are most people are thinking Peter Parker. Kind of a classic Spider-Man, right? Like, always, like, the original cartoons were about Peter Parker, and the movies, the Sam Raimi movies, and then the newer ones when Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland were in it, those as well. So most people probably have a perception of Peter Parker as Spider-Man. Into the Spider-Verse happens to be one of those movies, though, that asks a question about, like, all these different universes and that there are different interpretations of Spider-Man. So you might have SPDR and Penny Parker in one, you'd have Spider-Man Noir in another, Spider-Gwen, and in this particular thing, the main characters, Peter Parker, Miles Morales, and then Peter B. Parker, which almost seems like a through a mirror, sadly, version of Peter Parker.
That's the older version, right? That Film Theory did a good video on that, where they basically were like, which version of Spider-Man is this? And it's I believe Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man.
They think it's Tobey Maguire's
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
It's Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man.
Okay. Peter B. Parker is, like, when you're watching the movie, they kind of do different intros for each of the characters, and Miles comes from the same world as Peter Parker, the way you usually think of Peter Parker, and then and then has to kind of take up the mantle afterward. Things went well for Peter, like the way that you normally think. Marries MJ, saving the city, the people's hero, the whole thing. He's doing great. He's in shape. He's living his dream. Peter B. Parker, unfortunately, things didn't work out so well. Had some missteps, got out of shape, got divorced from MJ, living alone, got really attached to his couch, and just trying to, still the only Spider-Man in his universe, so, it's going. And then he gets pulled into this world, and now is confronted with the fact that he's actually not really the Spider-Man that people know. But in many ways, for the people that are on the ground, Miles is also not the Spider-Man that people know. They're used to Peter Parker.
Yeah.
Now you get all these other characters. Spider-Ham comes in. I mean, there's a thing.
Yeah.
Everyone loves that. And now you're confronted with all these other Spider people from different universes. And for the people that are on the ground floor, they have an impression about who the actual hero is. And then there's all these other folks. This is another Spider-Man. This is another hero. Not the one we're used to. And it got me to thinking, like, how must the interpretation be on the ground floor for people when they're encountering your party? Right? Like, are you actually the heroes? Or are you, like, the B-team heroes? Do they actually know who you are? Are you actually the heroes of the story from a ground level?
I think that would come into play of what level your characters are, for instance. Where I've heard the concept of tiers of play. Where levels like 1 through 4 are like pretty low, like just menial, like adventurers, whatever. As soon as you get above level 4, you're into like folk heroes.
Yeah.
And then after that, you're like, oh, these guys are well-known heroes. At level 10 through like 15. And then after level 15, you are like demigod level status. You know? So I think that depends on like how well known, what you do in your campaign, what the story is. But again, where you're like, are you the B team heroes? Well, what if your campaign actually has another group or king or entourage going about doing things that are actually in the headlines, essentially, if there's news or broadcast. The story is about them, technically, but you're in the background actually doing all the groundwork. Think of Life of Brian, the Monty Python's movie.
Sure.
Where it's a strange reference, I know.
No, I see where you're going with this.
Where, Jesus obviously is Jesus, but everyone thinks that Brian is the real guy. So I haven't actually seen it, but I know the plot synopsis, and I've been meaning to see it for years now. So, Brian's going around doing everything in the foreground. Everyone's following him around as if he's Jesus, while Jesus is the one in the background, the B team, essentially, pulling all the miracles and doing stuff. Right.
Yeah, so... And that's kind of one of the things is like, well, who's the real Messiah?
Yeah. Obviously the guy that actually is doing miracles.
Well, yeah, there is that. but the perception on the ground is that that's not the case. That they think they know who the real person, the real deal is. And I started to wonder about what we should take away from the public perception of your heroes. Like, are they supposed to be out front, even? Like, maybe they don't want to be. Maybe they don't want to have that notoriety. Maybe some of them do. You could have a party of, like, 6 different players, and 2 of them want fame and want to be the heroes of the story, and the other ones just don't, because they don't want the baggage, or they don't want the notoriety that comes with it.
Well, you could, in that case, be like, 1 or 2 of your players could be like, yeah, I want to be like the face and the rest of you are considered the support or the entourage or like
Got
the
it.
groupies or whatever you want to,
Sure.
the roadies, as you will.
Okay.
Oh, these guys, they just carry my gear. They're
Yeah.
just here. They're my friends, and they're along to help and give me moral support. You could do a face thing like that. Or on the other side, you could have, say, if the party is something that doesn't really want to take the fame that comes with doing quests and being heroes, or isn't seeking it outwardly, maybe they've got a group following behind them and taking glory for themselves.
Oh.
And that would be really interesting as a hook as well, is you're going around doing all these quests, but there's a party following a day behind you that goes in and does cleanup work and then claims what you didn't, finish off, or if you didn't report back or didn't tell, like maybe you're reporting to one person,
Sure.
but they're going to the local towns saying they did what you did.
Right. And I can see a really interesting plot hook to that too, like just this idea of like, yeah, remember when we bested the mountain trolls? Like, no, you didn't do that. You didn't do that. Trent did that.
Yeah. But then that would become later on, if you find out about this and you confront them.
Yeah.
If the public sees them as the hero and you confront them for being a fake hero and you being the real hero,
Sure.
public perception of you might be that, no, you're just trying to pull the glory from the real hero.
Yeah, it's stolen glory from... You're not the real Spider-Ham.
Yeah, and then it could be the case of, well, then if you beat the real hero, are you seen as a villain, or does it come to light that, oh, maybe you are the real deal? Maybe this person was lying to me. It could be a redemption arc. It could go all sorts of directions from that.
Sure. Yeah, I can see that. I'm thinking that there's from at least a storytelling perspective, that was the kind of thing that I got as a takeaway from this idea that, like, maybe people just don't, and they wouldn't really have an idea of the picture of what the heroes are doing in the way that the people that are directly involved do. And if that is the case, then some things are going to get misinterpreted. And maybe people's, impression is going to be different. And possibly it's just a matter of who's doing what and what people value. Like, okay, for the young one, Miles Morales, that version from Into the Spider-Verse, is the real Spider-Man. Because what Miles does in that movie is very heroic, as he is Spider-Man. He's the primary Spider-Man in that movie, and what he does is very heroic. And sans other interpretations or, outside of a different one, yeah, he's absolutely the hero of that story, and you'd understand why, if that's the only thing you're familiar with, that is the only real Spider-Man. But I think it's fascinating that in that it's also the story that tells you about so many Spider-Men.
Yeah.
And still there's a real one. When I feel like the whole purpose of the movies for Into the Spider-Verse was to kind of explain that really anyone could be Spider-Man.
Yeah.
If they were, if they had the courage and the opportunity to be that. Which, not to divert too much, but Stan Lee, when he originally made Spider-Man, had the suit traditionally covers everything head to toe. Completely. And one of the reasons why he wanted to do that is because he felt like it was important for anyone to be able to see themselves in the suit. That anyone could be Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think it's so funny when we talk about who the real Spider-Man is, because every one of those versions is the real Spider-Man in some way.
Well, on the flip side of that is, who is Robin? And that's
true.
not only because, well, anyone could be Robin. No, it's because the mantle of Robin has been passed around to several characters given the title of Robin.
Right.
Where, obviously, one of them was killed by Joker. And then there was another one that left. And there's been at least three different Robins, for instance.
Right. Well, did he get killed by Joker, though?
Yeah, he got beaten to death with a crowbar.
You didn't play Arkham Knight, did you?
Depends what version of canon you're going with, because
Okay.
he kind of beat him to death and then kind of turned him into a Joker clone type thing.
And in some ways, it turned him into essentially a villain. After he was mentally broken. But yes.
Well, he still beat him pretty badly.
Oh yeah.
Fun fact in that, Teen Titans Go, which everyone hates because it's not the original Teen Titans. It is fully self-aware and ridiculous, however. There is a bookshelf with a urn of ashes that says Jason Todd and has a crowbar leaning against it in the Teen Tower. Or in the Titans Tower. So, just paying homage to that.
Paying homage to the Jason Todd of it all. Yeah, they've done that with many different superheroes over the years.
Yes.
Sometimes they'll rebrand them, but I've seen many ways where they don't. And Spider-Man's probably the ones that had the most interpretations. There's something like 20 or 30 different versions of Spider-Man if you want to run through everything. Or no, maybe not. Maybe not quite so many that are specifically Spider-Man that are called Spider-Man. But in terms of then there's the Scarlet Spiders and Madam or Spider-Woman and Spider-Gwen and Spider-Ham and all those. Which are all supposed to be essentially different versions of Spider-Man anyway. But the point is, the perception from the ground about who the real hero is and who it isn't can be shaped a lot by just your experiences with them. And so I guess the lesson that a party might want to take away is if they want to be the real heroes of the story and they want to have the notoriety for that, you got to go out and shake some hands, folks.
Right.
You got to go out there and get right with people on this.
And the other side to that is by making sure people know that you're the hero, you put a target on yourself.
Yeah, and if you're running a game and you want to have fun with that, I'm sure Alex would want to do this too. Fame can also mean notoriety.
Yes.
Notoriety means exposure, and that means you can get a target on your back.
You get a big target on you.
And you don't have to let that story beat go to waste. At all.
Especially if your big bad starts to notice these guys, or a secondary villain, or a tertiary villain.
Or a quadrarian villain.
Is that a word?
Yes.
Now it is.
No, I can't remember what it is, but quadrinary, I believe, is fourth.
We'll go with it.
Doesn't matter. The point is, if you want to be the real Spider-Man, you gotta put in the work.
Yes. And if you want to be Jason Todd, you don't want to be Jason Todd.
There's no interpretation I know of the Jason Todd that it ends well. Let's put it to you that way. Whether you're in the version where he died or he just became a really angry villain that tried to kill Batman, none of them worked out well for Jason Todd. Don't be Jason Todd, folks. Jason Todd is not the real Spider-Man. So!
That's the title of this segment.
Yeah, Jason Todd is not the real Spider-Man.
Yep.
Alright.
I approve.
Okay.
People are gonna have to wait to the end of the segment to understand why the title of that segment is that.